As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. Podcast! You're listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries. With the DJ scratch, that means we're live. How is everybody doing? Welcome to another episode of Burn and Return. My name is Matt. Sometimes I go by the Grass Factor Martin. Alongside me, we have Mr. Ray Ito and Ryan DeMay. Gentlemen, how are we doing? Little housekeeping real quick. If you need to be hands-free and you want to listen to this and you don't want to sit and stare at a YouTube screen, hop on over to your favorite podcast app, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, whatever, however you do it, however you want to get it done, you can do that way. It doesn't necessarily always have to be right here in the boob tube in order to see it. That being said, gentlemen, how in the hell are y'all doing? Happy Easter, since we are recording this on Easter.
Happy Easter. And yeah, for those people that don't want to sit and stare at us for 90 plus minutes and get all those insatiable and unnatural urges looking at our faces, I completely understand. And yeah, it's nice to have choices, right, Matt? You know, as we were talking here in the pre-show and talking about, you know, there's the religious part of Easter, but then there's also the commercialized part with the Easter bunny and all that kind of stuff. And so it's a day that we should all celebrate, but also a day that the people that are into feet and bestiality can celebrate too, because, you know, rabbits' feet and Easter bunnies and all that kind of stuff. They're in weird stuff like that. There's probably going to be some people that are excited.
Serious question. Do you find the Easter bunnies that are out and available for picture taking, whether with kids or however, do you find them incredibly frightening?
Absolutely frightening. And it's I don't understand how that's not traumatizing children in any way, shape, or form. In fact, you know, again, I guess you have to have some commercial symbol for it, you know, but my God, yeah, the smile, the creepy smile on their face, that's usually what does it for me.
My goodness.
Look at Wallace here.
Poor doggy. I mean, Wallace is probably thinking, get me the fudge out of here.
I think Wallace is saying is 30 seconds on each side, and that would suffice for a fine dinner. Because you know, and kudos to the cameraman for finding the one picture that catches the drool not running down his face as the dog is contemplating devouring the Easter bunny for a quick lunch snack there.
That's
alternate thought is
it was taken with an iPhone, Matt. Best camera you got.
No, I don't know if it's the quality of the camera as it is the skill of the camera person. So good work to you, John, cameraman.
The video I just sent JPEG. Go ahead.
Alternate thought is that Wallace is thinking, I wonder if Ray has got any good recipes for rabbit.
I bet you Ray does. I bet you Ray's got some good recipes for rabbit.
Rabbit
I
chili?
do.
Okay, down.
I do.
Throw that video up there real quick, JPEG. This is how I think of all of us as adults, as grown human beings, find the Easter bunny to be.
Yeah, the fucking Easter bunny breaking up fights. Fuck yeah.
So, for those of you that are watching at home, there's a guy in an Easter bunny costume that has removed another drunk gentleman's shirt and is beating the holy hell out of him. So, the Easter bunny is wailing ass on some drunk dude, shirtless drunk dude. That's incredible.
We can't be sure beyond a reasonable doubt, though, that that's a man inside an Easter bunny costume and not the actual Easter bunny, though, Matt.
This is true. That could be the Easter bunny. That could be Dylan Mulvaney, for all we know. I love the employee is now walking up to say, "Excuse me, Easter bunny, you're going to have to tone it down. Okay, you knocked guy out. Let's call it what it is." You need to take it easy now.
There it goes.
That's
goes.
a hell of an ass whooping there. I'm not gonna lie. I'd take a picture with that Easter bunny, but that's about the only one that earned that right in my regard.
Bloody Knuckles Easter Bunny. That's going to mess up the keychains, though. So, fortunately. Anyway, how about we go to those headlines?
Yes.
Nothing to fear here.
This is just the news, and so we've been talking a lot about the Asian MILF oil and the situations that's continuing to show up there on that there Lake George situation, whatever that is, somewhere up north, New York, and it blends into some other state as well too. I can't remember everywhere it runs, but I know it's a big ass lake, right? And and so. Everybody in one particular community was up in absolute freaking arms over this, over the Eurasian water milfoil and water milfoil. I can't even say it now without laughing. But and so they went up in arms. They got a bunch of signatures. And they had a bunch of experts come in and talk about the good versus the bad, and any sane or reasonable person that read it was like, okay, the good, without a doubt, outweighs the bad. The bad being we let it go, and then we end up destroying the entire ecosystem, which is like the legitimate concern of doing nothing about this is destroying the ecosystem. But because the word chemical is bad, and therefore whatever you want to attach to a negative connotation to it, negative meaning, whether it's reality or not, was done so. And so anyway, they were able to block it. Well, it turns out that everybody else up and down Lake George was like, wait a second, hang on. Now we're interested in actually doing that. You see, we can give a shit about this lake, and so we're kind of concerned about having a whole bunch of loss here. So I know they're not into it, but we're into it. Can we take a look at it? So anyway, we have owners of RV campgrounds and all kinds of things that are now all of a sudden starting to get interested and saying, hey, you know what? Let's take a real deal look at this. And now what will be interesting to see is how this ends up shaking out the other communities that are not for it, right? And so. This is one of the justifications either for or against it. So Adirondack Council spokesperson John Sheehan said he was disappointed the state planned to appeal the decision and reiterated concern about the potential long-term consequences of the herbicide. Right. So, basically the council spokesperson Sheehan here is like, no, we can't use chemicals. He said the widespread interest in the herbicide across the lake underscored why the council called on the EPA to conduct an adjudicatory I don't know how to say that word hearing in Lake George, and indicated the council would press that position in the Lake Luzerne proposal. This is not an emergency, Sheehan said of the MILF oil infestations. It's a slow motion problem that needs to be carefully thought out, and that is all we're asking for. And again, if anybody's been following this, the one thing that is obvious is that it has been well thought out, and to pretend like it hasn't been, in my opinion, is the most naive approach to this that I've ever seen. Literally, experts were called in from all over the place. They talked about pros, cons, health risks, and long-term environmental risk. And if the primary concern is the environmental impact and overall environmental health of this waterway, then it makes absolutely no sense not to consider this herbicide and to continue to fight it. And so what ends up happening when you're dealing with nature is that the longer you sit on something and stare at it without taking any sort of action, the faster it gets out of hand. That's just the rule of nature, right? And then all of a sudden, you're caught holding your wee-wee in your hand, wondering why this is all you have left. And I can put it into another example that I think other people may be able to comprehend a little better. So take in, for instance, is that you want to launch a marketing campaign in spring, but you're not quite pleased with how all your marketing literature comes together. And you keep changing it, and you keep changing it, and keep changing it. And then all of a sudden, May 1st is here, and you missed your entire spring. And then you're like, well, shit, now what do I do? was like, well, it was a slow motion problem that I continued to take a look at and reanalyze until, well, damn it, it was too late. And I think, I don't know, potentially something like that could happen here. Y'all taking a look at this. Am I out of control over here? Am I an extremist for my viewpoint on this? What is left to consider about this that has not been considered up to this point?
Here's a quote from the article, and this is coming from Eric Siy, S-I-Y, weird name. Quote, if any lake association wants to experiment with Procelicor, which is the herbicide in question here, that is their prerogative. But we will stand fast to oppose the use of the aquatic herbicide in Lake George until all outstanding issues have been resolved. He said, there are simply far too many unanswered scientific questions regarding the potential adverse effects on the lake's water, plants, and organisms to move forward at this time. I'd like to know what these questions are and to what extent they haven't been addressed, either directly or indirectly, at this point. Like,
it's the same questions being asked over and over. Is it going to harm us? Which continues to be answered over and over. And what's going to happen to the fish? We've gone through this several times, and that would be the only thing left that would not be answered for the 100th time. That would slow the roll on this. We've covered the economics, we've covered the environment, and we've covered downstream quasi long-term effects on it, right? And and that's just reading the headlines and browsing through articles. We've been able to deduce that, but yet still here we are with bukus of unanswered questions. Still,
No, I don't think it's a matter of unanswered questions. You know what the problem is, Matt and Ryan? These jackasses,
here we go,
don't like the answer that they're getting. That's the actual problem here. Okay, they don't like it. You see, what they would like to hear is Procelicor is 10 times more toxic than cyanide. You shouldn't do it. That's the answer that they want to hear. Or it is an instant carcinogen like, say, 2,4,5-T. That's the answer that they want to hear. They don't like the fact that this herbicide has literally passed all the hurdles that would otherwise keep it from being used. Because you know what? If this happened, say, 40 years ago, I can see 3 possible scenarios as to dealing with this weed, and none of them are as safe as the Procelicor. Number 1, fumigate the lake with acrolein. 2, apply endothol. Or 3, apply 2,4-D. And notice why those 3 things are completely not even on the table. Because all of those things are actual toxins.
I actually wholeheartedly agree with you, Ray. I mean, I couldn't agree with you anymore because you're exactly right. And you know, I think you think about it from the standpoint of an interrogation with the police, right? How many times, if they suspect you of committing murder, for instance, and you're there and you don't have a lawyer, are they going to ask you the same questions over and over and put together hypotheticals using the Reed technique of, oh, perhaps it was an accident, right? You didn't mean to do this. It was an accident that happened. And they're asking you the same question over and over, expecting a different result to see if you will waver in your answer. And that's exactly it right here. The beautiful thing about having biologists in here to answer these questions is that really there's only one answer to each question. And if you don't know, you don't know. And what you do know because that data is already there and backed up, and you just literally report the data, right? And so how this continues to shake out and why it's creating such a stink is, I think a perfect example of whatever's occurring nationally as a whole, right? Of tribalism and partisanship of just, whatever you have in your head, you're gonna steer into it at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and there's nothing that's going to deviate your course or open your mind to any other suggestion. Whether you're a Fox News or a CNN reply guy, in effect, you're the same thing. It's just you're on opposite sides of the spectrum. And what's beautiful is that neither of them know they're the exact same thing. And but in reality, they're just race car drivers at 1,000,000 miles an hour headed to a wall. So it is what it is.
I'm just the guy in the stands that's waiting for a big wreck.
Oh, I'm instigating both of them. I'm like, you're driving slow as hell because you ain't Dale Earnhardt, are you?
Yeah,
You don't look like Dale Earnhardt to me. You better speed up.
I'm the guy that's saying, you know what, you bastards, let me show you all how to crash into a wall. You want to do it? Let's do it. Idiots, all of them.
Ain't no pea-footing going on around here.
In a better place.
That's right.
Fertilizer prices have continued to fall. So retail fertilizer and spot prices are declining. And kind of good news, bad news here is that our nitrogen sources are back down, encroaching to 2021 type levels. And so we're definitely seeing some stability there. Phosphorus and potash are still up from 2020-21 levels fairly significantly, but they are on the drop. I wouldn't consider them in a steep decline, but they are gradually coming back down. Are they ever going to come back down where they were? I don't know. Again, we're still pending mine improvements, production improvements from nutrient mines, and we'll see if that ends up coming on or not, and how all that shakes out in the wash. Now, from a geopolitical standpoint of things getting weird, if anybody caught the OPEC news that OPEC is going to slash production again, and slowly we're going to be fading away from the dollar. I would say that there is nothing that's going to be predictable about this, at least over the next 6 months or a year. So, if you can lock it in at spot price now, which there's hardly anybody here that's going to be able to buy thousands of tons of fertilizer at one time. So locking in spot prices is probably not whatever. But if you are concerned about buying this spring, then don't, because this is what you're getting right now is going to be a good price, and it is what it is. And then how it shakes out over the next year, who knows? The main drivers of fertilizer prices are going to be oil and gas, right? And mainly it's natural gas that's going to have a big influence on that. But for whatever reason, when you do see the rise in fuel costs because so much transportation is involved in this, you do see spikes in fertilizer as well too. Has not hit yet, but that's not to say that any moment you might see a 10% spike, which is fairly normal for input commodities to be able to do in a day or a moment or a second. You never know. And then lastly here, fertilizer killed 50,000 fish in a Linn County creek. So this is up in Iowa. A landowner has to pay more than $20,000 after an investigation showed fertilizer pumped from the property killed more than 50,000 fish in Dry Creek last fall. He must pay a $10,000 administrative penalty and $11,400 of restitution investigative costs. And so basically what happened is that they have ammonia tanks and they have kind of like a gravel catch basin for this. And so they were pumping a cleaned out area, or they cleaned out the tanks or something, and we're pumping that water into the gravel catch basin. Well, the problem was that that gravel basin flows directly into Dry Creek, so anyway, followed the tile drainage right into Dry Creek. And there was a shit ton of dead fish in it, and a neighbor noticed it and was like, I better call the DNR and find out what's going on here. That's a shitload of dead fish. And so they come out and investigate. They're doing a little due diligence there, and they come around and they notice a gravel area and an ammonia nitrogen storage tank. And then they're like, huh, this is interesting. It smells like ammonia. And they're like, well, yeah, but we thought the water was clear we thought the water was clean because we didn't see any contaminants in the water. Well, I don't know if y'all have ever seen nitrogen dissolved in water, but does it have any color to it? Just straight nitrogen, whether ammonium nitrate or UAN or
Nope.
urea?
Nope.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it
or
doesn't.
has anybody ever seen what's called aqua ammonia, which would be similar to what was probably released here, because aqua ammonia, if you didn't know any better, would look exactly like water, except caution. Don't put that in your fucking aquarium, and for Christ's sake, don't drink it.
And it
Just saying.
and it stinks. And I love this. Is that like, huh? Jorgensen noted a strong ammonia smell near the tile intake, and tests of the ground nearby showed ammonia nitrogen was present. Huh? Wow. Damn. How would you know if you give it the visual test, which is just asinine to begin with? I mean, that is the biggest bunch of, oh shit, I didn't know. I looked at it and it looked clean to me. But it stinks like ammonia, and smelling salts are ammonia based, right? Because they
Yeah.
are absolutely abysmal to get into your sinus cavity. But oh boy, here he thought he pulled the wool over their eyes, didn't he? Maybe not. Maybe not.
No.
If y'all are enjoying this, and look, let me tell you, the majority of the fun that goes on offline, because one, we have a series of characters, and you'll hear us reference them from time to time. We have representatives of Canada. We have representatives of a worldly man, and you'll hear us mention him by handle, Driver, as one of the most insane human beings that's ever walked the face of this planet. And then
Stubbornly
insane. I'm
insane.
just kidding. Yeah, yes, insanely stubborn. How about that? We'll try to be more precise with our words. And so if you hear us talk and you want to, like, man, I wonder what that is, you can ask us. Head on over to Burn and Return.
Time's up, it's over.
I'm sorry. Head on to patreon.com/Burn and Return and consider supporting our show. Look, for $4 a month, literally, it's cheaper than a beer a month. Or you, depending on what level of support you want to be able to show. If you can show it, great. If you cannot, continue doing what you're doing and have the best time with us, right? Please. If you listen to us and you absolutely hate everything we're doing, no problem. Turn it off. No harm, no foul. Does not bother us, I promise. The one thing we are not interested in is curtailing our content to you, who is not enjoying what you're hearing. But if you do hear what you're enjoying, then we will accept feedback, and we'd love to talk to you, and we'd love for you to be a member of our community, and you can do so at patreon.com/Burn and Return. That being said, and really, this is, we have assistance for the patrons to be able to put the different things we do on the shows together, and I know we call upon or are sent from the community things that we cover in one of our most controversial segments, and that is Joe Knows Turf. And for those of you that are wondering what exactly Joe Knows Turf is that we will take content that has been found online, and we will run it through the eyes of three different turfgrass professionals that come from three different segments of the industry, right? And so what that allows us to do is, coming from three different viewpoints, we're going to be able to uncover is that what we're looking at actually valid, is what we're looking at inherently good or bad, and ultimately what kind of critiques or how would we approach things differently than we witnessed in these online segments here. So without further ado, DeMay, take us on over to Joe Knows
Joe Knows Turf.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm gonna give you a bunch of accurate turf facts today because Joe knows turf.
Joe, he does know turf. The people that we're going to feature tonight, because listen, this is is a special one because it's almost like a mini series on this one, and it's like two competing points, point counterpoint, from two people that they know each other, but I'm not sure if they know turf. Might be a stretch. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and watch the first part of our twin bill Joe Knows Turf feature tonight, brought to us by Allen Hayne Lawn Care.
Oh, sound,
Sound.
JP.
Need sound.
I
No.
promise you this was working 5 minutes ago when I tested it. Yeah, it's all right.
Fuck.
Oh, here we go.
Inch of
We call this
difference
Murphy's Law.
in that high spot there and the low. So what I've
Fine.
got is
I'm a
an inch
professional.
of difference in that high spot there and the low spot right there. So this is the area I need to concentrate on. Now, one thing, I'm not going to be able to get this all done in one application or one shot, right? This is one of the things you guys have been concerned about as well. Is this sand going to turn to, is this going to turn things to concrete and everything else, guys? It takes Portland cement and sand and aggregate to make concrete. So we're not adding Portland cement here, we're just adding sand, and we're not adding like a 7 or 8 inch sand cap here. It's a couple 2-3 inches at a time, just bringing up a couple low spots here and there. That is not gonna hurt your ground, and it's not gonna turn it to concrete. I don't care what you read on the internet. Sand is the best leveling agent for small spots like this. All right, now when we did the zoysia, you remember the sand I had was a little
Pause.
bit wet.
Okay. He does make a good point there that it's something that does come up often about sand going onto soil, creating concrete and everything like that. The only thing that you need to be mindful of in that particular setting is that if you cap it, if you just go over the top of it, you'll be fine if you use a correctly sized sand. And we'll talk about that here at the end, about the science of how this all works. Okay. So let's continue.
And pretty much whenever you buy sand at the store, it's going to be damp. I guess they do that maybe to make it pack into the bags easier. That was fine because we could just put the wet sand on and then just kind of, we used a broom really just to spread it in there. With this though, you're not going to be able to broom this sand in because the grass is so tall. So you don't want wet sand. What you actually want is really dry sand. And you can see I actually opened this bag up right here and I let the sun get in there and it dried the sand out. That is what you want. I've also been trying to mix some of the wet sand around in this wheelbarrow here with the sun shining on it and dry it out. But really, that's what you want. See how that is? That's how you want your sand. Not like this wet stuff right here. This you could use, but it's not quite as easy. Now, I will show you one quick trick, and maybe you can find this where you are. I have an Ace store by me that sells sand that they keep inside of a sealed shed all the time, and the sand is bone dry every time I buy it from them. And so if you can find that little secret, that's really the best place. Let me show you the sand that I get from my local Ace over by there. Okay, so this will give us a chance to look at some different sand too, because people are concerned about that. This is actually probably what most of you all have seen, premium play sand. This is what I got at Ace. And then this I got at the big box, and this is called paver sand. Like I said, this paver sand came wet. Look at how beautiful this is. Look at that flow. That's gorgeous, and that's because Ace keeps it stored dry. And that's really what you want. That's gonna spread a lot easier in our tall grass. But this will also give us a chance to compare sands, so come closer. So if we look at these two together, and again, dryness is the key. I know I keep mentioning that repetition is the key to learning. It's just gonna make it a lot easier. I've been trying to dry this sand out for a few days now, and you can see I wasn't super successful. So why it's so important to get pre-dried sand if you can. But we'll go ahead and compare these two. So we have paver sand and we have this play sand. Looks like the play sand is a little bit finer, but either one of these is going to work just perfectly because again, we're not using this for any other reason except for its leveling properties, and sand is the best leveling agent you're gonna find for a lawn. Okay, so here's our low spot right here. Let me just show you why I keep talking about you don't want wet sand. So if I take sand that's wet and I try to throw it in there, what you'll see is it just sits up on the top. And so now it's just matting down all the long grass. So what do I have to do? I have to go in there and try to get rid of it somehow. Whereas when you watch the dry sand, it'll literally just disappears. Whoa. See? So you can feather it in there real nice. And that's what you do is you feather that dry sand into those low areas and it builds them up. And this is something that's going to be done over time. It's not like we're going to mound this up this one time. I got a couple bags today, a couple 2-tree bags tomorrow, next week, you know, whatever. It's like a constant thing. Whenever you see a low spot, you just chuck some dry sand in there and let it seek its own level.
Okay.
My head
Couple
hurts,
thing-
Ryan. My head hurts.
Just go ahead and take a bong rip for me real quick and calm yourself down, because the next one's going to really, yep. Hold it in. Yeah. All right. So there's a few things here that you see a lot of these videos, and this one here, there's a couple issues I want to just point out. And you know what? This is one that people will be like, man, you're being too scientific. You're being too this, too that. Okay. Can sand be a good leveling agent? Yes, it can in certain situations. However, I would not use it as that singular tool just to do that and raise up a small area like this that has a 1-inch deflection. Okay, like what he's showing here in this video, 1.5, whatever it is. Okay. The second thing is that a 50-pound bag of this sand, it's going to take literally, I'll go up and do the math here for you in a second, just to let you know where we're at. But
I already did some math like that, and it was horrifying.
Okay.
It was horrifying.
What
Ryan.
was it? What was it?
Okay. Each bag of sand is approximately half a cubic yard. And
Half a cubic foot, you
normally
mean?
half a cubic foot.
Okay.
So correction, half a cubic foot. And so, in order for me to obtain a cubic yard, which is approximately how much sand I need to correct imperfections on, I want to say, a 750 square foot area. You know how many? You know how many bags of sand I'm looking at? At least 50 bags of sand, Ryan. 50.
Yeah. So my rough math here tells me that for a 10 square foot area, right? 10 square foot area, we need a little more than a bag and a half to raise that area.
Two
in
to three,
theory, 1 inch.
2 to 3.
1 inch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to need 2 to 3 in real life.
Okay. And at $5.50 a bag, that gets expensive real quick. So I guess my message here is a couple of things. Number one, play sand is not the correct material to do this. It really isn't. It's ubiquitous. It's easily available, all that kind of stuff. However, what we know about how sand behaves in turfgrass systems is that it's this, right? Is that if we want to have sand that behaves the correct way, right? There are specific sizes of those sands. If you pull those grains out and you kind of flip through, and you get that real fine stuff that's going to go down in your canopy really well, that right there, those smaller particles is what's ultimately going to slow down drainage properties and create issues, right, at the surface when you're talking about interfacing with soil below it. Okay, so that's one thing there. The second thing is just the cost on this. So if you have a lot of spots to level, I highly encourage you to look at getting a bulk sand that's delivered and that you can go and do these areas, because you're talking about orders of magnitude of, in the dozens, right, to lower your effective cost on doing this. So that's that one thing. All right, that's the second thing there. The last thing is just, if you have some spots that are low that need to get fixed or something like that, I would advocate using what you have in terms of, if you're growing on soil, get some soil and you can top dress in with that if it's dry, right? Cut your sod back, raise your sod, do it the right way. Don't life hack this. And I know that everybody's going to say, it's just my lawn, I don't care. And you know what? If that's fine, that's the route you want to go, that's fine. I'm giving you the correct way to do it. All right. So we can talk more about that in a minute. But first, go ahead.
Ryan, I got to bring up one more thing about spot sanding a lawn rather than sand chapping.
All right.
You know when somebody just spot sands a lawn? If that sand is extremely different from their existing soil composition, they can literally create spots in the lawn that dry out faster than the rest of the lawn.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't ask me how I know about this, because my other reason for calling in the dump truck with 5 yards of sand in it is to fix someone else's fuck up, because their lawn is like a lasagna lawn, or
Yeah.
a lawn where, for goodness sakes, Ray, you forgot
Time's up.
to
It's
mix
over.
the eggs and the flour and the sugar together for the cookie dough. It's all separate, you know.
All right. Now, time's up. It's over on Alan, but let's go over to his friend and our friend too. From Taj, straight from Taj in Louisville, coming to you live. Here's John Perry.
Behind me right here, kind of went over the heavier spots where it was like a little more low. I am going to drag the level lawn across it real quick, but for the most part, I think I could probably brush this in.
Look at this filter.
And I'll use just a push broom for that. And then I'm going to grab some sphagnum peat moss and get that down here as well, and kind of get this whole thing sort of covered up some more.
What?
I actually did a
Where's that bong? Take another rip.
overseeding application
need
on this last, like right before wintertime.
Big.
So there's seed in here that's going to be germinating as things start to warm up. And I'm thinking that if I just get a nice layer of that peat down, and then I'll do some more sand later.
Good
I can kind of keep this thing warmed up over the next few days as things
peat moss.
kind of get a little funky around here again. So
now it's just smooth, smooth, smooth. Get that stuff just as flat as you possibly
Ray,
can.
get
before
your
you go
tissues
back
ready.
over it again.
For
So
what?
now it's time for the peat moss. I just take this, a couple of bales, throw it across the whole thing, smooth it out. as
Oh
best as I
shit!
All right,
Oh,
now
shit.
for those of you listening on audio, JP is on his. This is John Perry from Lonegoose. He's out on his putting green at home, and he has taken a bale of peat moss and has literally covered his green to the point that you can no longer see grass at this point. And he's kind of raking it in with the level lawn, and he's got at the bottom of the screen it says these tips are for all turf types. All right, let's let him go.
as I can.
Hang on. Just before we go into this, one of the things he alluded to is that he's doing this to preserve the color that he's established at this point, because he's got bent grass, and he's way up in the mountains, and I guess is expecting snowfall, snowpack, snow cover, or something, and which is not necessarily a bad thing for bent grass. And it's cool season grass; it could tolerate a fair amount of shit thrown at it. So it's not something that I would wig out about. So I guess this would be just as soon as the snow melts, there's a playing surface ready to go. I guess. It says this is do not level your lawn with sand until you watch this, but so far the sand application that was done does not appear to be an attempt at leveling, just based on like the odd. Okay, there's some general rules that if you see straight lines in nature, that's not natural, right? You don't typically see that, and the fact that there were just boxes, perfectly square boxes of sand that were here. This is not a leveling project. This was like literally, let's get a little bit of sand down and run my level on across it, and for the purpose of showing it on video, because that was not leveling, and this is not like a top dressing, for infiltration or playing surface. Because it was nowhere near and even enough distribution. A lot of times you'll see sand top dressings done, throughout the course of a growing season on a golf green, for instance. Even when you're not aerating, they may come in and just dust, an 1/8 of an inch of sand or a 1/16 of an inch of sand across the greens. That's not what happened here either. So anyway, I'm confused by the title of the video, what we've seen executed so far, and then the peat moss thing is really interesting, I guess.
Do is have this pre-mixed with your sand, which would actually be better, and it would be just a lot more easy to work with. But you can do it this way as well, and then add another layer of sand and just start flattening everything out. So just remember, the idea here is to get some high CEC material in with that sand, especially if you continue to top dress with sand or level with sand year over year. You're going to want to do this. So quick recap. Just make sure if you're building up with sand, if you keep leveling and you're doing this over and over more and more, work some peat moss in there. It's going to make a big difference. It's going to hold more moisture. It's going to help hold nutrients better in that sand bed that you're filling up. And ultimately, your lawn is going to benefit from it. But then something doesn't feel right about any of this. I don't
Camera tricks.
feel.
Honey, are you okay?
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's a
Good ending.
It's a good movie. I don't get it, but
Do you
is he
get any movie,
insinuating that
though,
it was all
really?
a dream? No, I don't.
Was this
But,
an April
is the-
Fool? Was this an April Fool? Just asking.
I don't know if it was or not. When was it put out?
2 days ago.
Was it April 1?
Yeah,
I didn't think it
April
was.
7th. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess he was insinuating that it was all a dream. So don't do this. Is that?
I hope.
Or-
I'm not quite sure. The bottom line is this: is he did it. So
Okay.
if you go down the comments, there. There's some interesting ones here about. Let's see here. Keep going. Here's is it Power Man 5000? I wonder how the Miramichi Green. Oop, what'd you do? Oh, there you go. Where'd you go? There you go. I wonder how the Miramichi Green peat alternative would work with this application. I've been using it instead of peat moss, and the lawn is loving it. Sick. I'll have to try mixing it with sand next year. Go ahead and click the replies here real quick. I think it would work just fine, says John. We'll have a bag top dressing material for the general public later this year or early next year. We've been stockpiling in bulk and getting it to pros. Interesting. All right. So anyway, bottom line is this: is that please, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever kind of turf you're growing, don't do this.
Why?
Just don't do this. Well, okay. A couple of reasons why. I'll let Ray touch on the properties of sphagnum peat moss in particular, but just from a sheer management standpoint, when we're talking about we've got to incorporate high CEC material to help out and balance out the amount of sand that we're putting out, it doesn't quite work that way. And so, if you're going to do that, you typically blend that stuff together, right? So if we were building something new or if we were top dressing something old, we wanted to have an organic component in there. We wouldn't build it like a fucking birthday cake, right? Tiger stripe it. We would actually blend those two materials together. And to the extent that our mix, if you will, would be somewhere in the probably maybe 10-15% tops on the organic, and that's volume to volume. So when you go volume to volume on a material like peat, right, which is super, super light, that's not a lot. Okay. It's very little that actually goes in there. So this right here is going to create some problems. Ray, why don't you tell the folks at home some of the problems that it would create?
Okay, here's what you're looking at. If you have high organic matter, especially on low-cut turf that is intended to be maintained in a sand media, 1, you have settling. 2, you have shrinkage. 3, you have excessive retention of moisture. And 4, you also have creation of an anaerobic condition, because you see, guys, do you know why golf courses core aerate their greens and sometimes their fairways, take away all the cores, and then refill those core holes with clean sand that has nothing in it? Do you know why they do it? They do it to mitigate and dilute the high CEC organic matter that is building up underneath the greens and the fairways. So I've been watching this entire video and I'm thinking, goodness me. So this guy is going to throw down and put on the exact very fucking thing that all of the golf courses are trying to get rid of, which is more organic matter. And I know for myself too, I personally am often on a quest to get rid of organic matter in a lawn as well. I mean, I'm trying to get rid of the shit, literally.
Well,
So this is
all things
this is
considered.
opposite.
Yeah, all things considered, two techniques here that I think deserve some scrutiny in the sense that a little bit overplayed, overused, and not necessarily these are. The first one is a hack that is not a good hack. It's not helping anybody. It's costing you way more money than it should. Do things the right way. If you want to do something, add some topsoil and just use that. If you can find some good dry, clean topsoil. If you can't, cut the shit out, lift the sod up, put soil underneath, and raise it the right way. That's the right way to do it. All right. Second thing is with the peat. Again, there's a whole host of issues that become management issues, notwithstanding,
especially when layered, right? And I want to clarify that there's two totally separate things between a homogenized mixture and a layer effect.
Yes.
Yes.
And so even to the point that if I'm using materials like say like a grub preventer, right? And I've got a layer of peat moss sitting right there near the surface, you better darn well believe it is not going to, the active ingredient will not make it through that layer and down into the root zone where it needs to so that the plant can take it up. So that's just one example. So again, management decisions, there's always some trade-off. There's always something downstream that whatever you do is going to affect short, medium, or long term. These seem like very, very short-term focused things that maybe don't set you up for long term. So, hey, if you're going to sell that house, or you don't give a shit or whatever, or if you're a contractor and you know this is a one-off and you don't give a fuck, I still would implore you to do the right thing. But the bottom line is moral of the story here is that these are not good practices. They deserve to be highlighted, right, for not being good practices, and people should know that. So, listen, John Allen, if you're mad at us, I'm sorry, but listen, just do better. That's it. So, peace out, Girl Scout.
One thing real quick that I want to bring up, and that if your concern is a lack of organic matter in sand, first off, that's a golf green, right? And typically those are grown on sand-based growing systems, and you might integrate some peat as a homogenized mixture into it. Like we said, layering. Peat by nature is a hydrophobic material, meaning it repels water. And also with the high CEC, then you're creating an extreme number of sites for things to not pass through it, right? So not only can you alter the infiltration rates of water, like DeMay also pointed out, you can also mitigate infiltration of herbicides or pesticides, or that could potentially be caught up in that layer. Then the second piece of this is that if you're concerned about a lack of organic matter, we have the Asian Turfgrass Center. Dr. Michael Woods has a whole project called OM246 that talks about rates of accumulation of organic matter at 2 centimeters, 4 centimeters, and 6 centimeters. And that's how you base how much sand you need to add per top dressing or through the course of a season based on rates of organic matter accumulation. In effect, what that proves is that you are naturally going to accumulate organic matter over a period of time just by having something growing, even if it is purely sand. You will accumulate organic matter. And so the point of adding peat moss to something to add organic matter is really counterintuitive, because you're naturally going to accumulate organic matter in a sand-based growing system at an ample enough rate to be able to improve things like water holding capacity or water holding capacity and also nutrient retention, if that's what your concern is.
Okay, and the final piece of this is looking further at Michael Wood's work, and then this other golf super, I think he's in Canada. Those two have done work on mitigating and reducing the amount of organic matter accumulation in a sand-based green. And do you know how those guys do it? And how I do it similarly, so that I increase longevity of my sand caps? Stop over fertilizing.
No.
Yeah.
That would be That's not good for business.
Yeah, you put down too much nitrogen, and you're going to make more problems than you're solving. And then finally, speaking of doing more work than you need to, when I see people massaging and fucking with their sand top dressing, it drives me nuts. And you know why it drives me nuts? Typically, when I am working with a sand cap or a top dressing on a lawn, once I have it roughly into place, all I do is I just take out the water hose and start watering until all that sand sinks into the turf grass. And you know what? This works especially well on turf grass that is not at green height, and I'm talking about you, Alan Hain. Rather than
he did water, he did water it at the end.
No, but then he spent all day fucking around with it, and then he watered it. For me, I just throw the sand down and then start watering. Save work. God.
Here's another statistic to keep in the back of your head is that say you pull a soil sample and your soil sample reports soil organic matter, and say you take a 4-inch sample at the top 2 centimeters, your total organic matter is going to be 5 or 6 times greater than whatever you read on that 4-inch test, right? So, say you pull a 4-inch test and you come back at 1.5. On your soil organic matter test, right? Which is, I would say probably what you're going to see in a sand-based system that's at least reached establishment. And we'll say times 5. That means at 2 centimeters, you're going to be somewhere around 7.5 inches. So approximately 1 inch down, you're going to be 7.5% organic matter. And then as you take it a little bit further into that 4 centimeter range, 4 centimeter depth, 2 inches, you're going to be, about half of that. And then, you'll be at your lowest point as you get down to that 10 centimeter range, right? So again, if you're concerned about organic matter at the surface, which was the whole premise of what John was talking about there, is that, you got to get in some organic matter with it. Well, right there already at the surface, you're 5 to 6 times greater. So if you're at 1, then you're probably going to be at 5 or 6% organic matter at the surface, which is already bordering on the high side of organic matter. I think most people, whether you're an organic person or not, will tell you that anything in excess of 5% organic matter becomes problematic, right? That you're actually retaining too much water, and that in and of itself is an issue. And that's not me as a non-organic fertilizer person. That is purely organic matter 101 people that are explaining to you that 5-6% organic matter is going to be starting to hovering around, creating problems for you type of scenario. So anyway, just one more log for the fire there.
Yep. I mean that's just why my typical solution for lawn problems is either the bulldozer or a serious sand cap. And guess what I'm burying? I'm burying soil that
Okay. I was nervous about what you were burying there, Ray. I'm not gonna lie.
That is artificially modified to have as much as 50% organic matter in it. Okay.
Yeah.
50.
Well,
I mean 50% organic matter, and then you're going to put a highly disease-prone grass on top of that 50% organic matter soil. What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, I'm sure plenty. Let's check out what's going wrong on this week's burns. I put this first one as a burn. Is it necessarily a burn? Probably not, but there's a reason why. And this is from the Modesto Bee, and this is the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District is offering Modesto residents an incentive for buying electric-powered lawn care tools as temperatures rise this spring, creating the possibility for smog once things really start to heat up. And in effect, you are getting rebates. This is what it looks like. Residents who apply for funds can receive up to $250 toward a trade-in from a gas lawnmower to an electric-powered one under the program. Electric lawnmowers with a trade-in that have a purchase price of $200 or less qualify for a rebate up to $100. Electric mowers with a purchase price of up to $350 qualify for a rebate of $150. Applicants who purchase an electric mower that costs more than $350 are eligible to receive a $250 rebate. Up to $50 is available when making a direct purchase without a trade-in of electric mowers and other electric yard care equipment, including edge string trimmers, hedge trimmers, chainsaws, and pole saws. Blowers are not eligible for a rebate under the program. That stings. Because isn't that what kicked this whole thing off was blowers? For lawnmowers or other eligible equipment that cost $100 or less and are purchased without destroying old equipment, a rebate of up to $25 is available. Residents who buy electric equipment without destroying the old that costs more than $100 can receive $50 back. Enhanced incentives of up to $500 are available in some Central Valley communities, including those of Fresno, Stockton, and Shafter. So two things. One, they did not include blowers in this. And then the other thing is, what the hell are they doing for commercial people? Because if you're spending $379 on an electric mower, which I would say is a pretty standard price for an electric mower, then you're going to get $150 back. So effectively, you're getting a new mower for $170. Well, what if you're a commercial guy and you're about to spend $16,000 to $26,000 on an electric mower? What are we doing there?
Go eat shit.
That's
man.
the loudest silence I've heard in a long time.
That's what's going to happen, because you see, the deal in communist world is that there are certain businesses that are basically not to be encouraged by the state. You see, that is the downside of a centrally controlled economy. The centrally controlled economy determines what businesses it wants to encourage and which businesses it wants to discourage. And I'm gathering that the powers that be in California do not like professional lawn care at all. They despise it. So, but then here's my final thought. Then, okay, Mr. Paul Pelosi, I hope after you recover from the hammer hit you took to your head that you go out and you mow your own fucking lawn.
DeMay?
Yeah, I mean, but besides hammer fucking your lawn, I think you should I don't know. This is going to be the reckoning that every community or state or whatever, political subdivision you want to call it is going to reckon with, is that, there is a massive industry within each one of these states that the funny part, here's the funny part is, right, most any municipality, right, in some way, shape, or form, will use contract services with regards to pest control or mowing or landscaping, things like that, right? I think that would be an interesting thing, because sometimes, it's depending on the size of the job and things like that, they try to get, some of the larger outfits in there, some of the big names that we all know and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times they try to get, local or small businesses or minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, things like that. What a good way to prop those folks up and incentivize that by saying, hey, listen, if you bid on our stuff, if you bid on it, we'll give you this rebate, and if you're successful, we'll give you this kind of rebate, right? There's I can't see that there's any sort of ethical issues there necessarily, other than to say, hey, this is an enticement, right? just as you would have a tax abatement for, job creation or real estate development, something like that. I think it's a good way to do it. So maybe you start there if you're a municipality and try out those ideas. So I don't know what the right answer is, but I think that's a good way to start, right? Especially where communities are in need of these services already. And wouldn't it be funny though, is if you had, an electric inclusion and a ban of gasoline powered equipment, and the contractor that you had, obviously they can still use their old stuff until it goes bye-bye, right? That it can't run anymore. But it would be funny if you had these all electric communities that the successful contractor on some of their bids for mowing work was all gas, right?
Yep. I mean, that would be the irony, or you know what my question is for these municipalities or any organization that pushes the mandate. How will they react when the contractor prices accordingly? Okay, because this is something that I am super familiar with, in that due to various, onerous, legal requirements, people doing work for the state or the city, they mark up their bid substantially versus dealing with a private individual.
Yeah.
I mean, it is built into the cost. And likewise, I'm trying to figure out, okay, so say this municipality mandates all electric and they put that on contractors as well. How will the contractor bid that job to cover the costs? Because as my late mentor told me, Ray, you're not running a nonprofit organization. You're here to make money.
And that's where we're at right now, is that it's going to continue to be an unfunded mandate, and it's going to continue to put these businesses behind that haven't done anything wrong. They've operated as they should have, and there's got to be some give and take there. I don't know. Personally, I believe that in a lot of these cases, a lot of these communities, that this money should be pooled and given to professionals first, and then homeowners.
Yeah, I mean, if you, yeah.
Well, the last thing. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was just going to say it only makes sense that way to me.
Well, yeah, I mean it does, because if you look at the lifespan on equipment, right? Who's piece of shit's gonna run out of gas first, literally and figuratively, right? It's gonna be the contractor that's running a zero turn until the fucking wheels fall off in like 2 or 3 years, right? 1,500 hours a year, and then pitch that bitch. Versus Joe's 6-pack with his Honda 216. That son of a bitch is gonna last 15 years. Let him live. I mean, they're gonna say, well, it's dirtier, and it's it's got more emissions and everything. Like, I get it, but then you got to help the people that need it the most.
But what is the total amount of time that is even going to be used in a month? Because you see, okay, I'll figure it this way, is that for your average consumer, they're running that Honda 216 maybe, I want to say at worst, maybe about 10, 15 hours a month, maybe 20 hours a month, where us in the business, that same mower, oh God, let's talk about at least 20 to 30 hours every week, every month of the growing season. Who has the bigger impact, right, Ryan? Who's got the bigger impact? Because I know damned well, I'm lucky if I only put on 10 hours a month on a piece of my equipment. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen.
What were we going to say, DeMay?
No, I nothing more than, this has to be something that, government's ultimately going to be supporting business owners first, the people that, provide way more of a tax base. All there's just there's so many reasons why. So, hey, if any of the politicians are listening, and you weren't put off by the hammer of the skull comment earlier, come talk to us about common sense legislation around electrifying lawn care equipment, and we'll consult for you pro bono. Our gift to you.
However, I'll tell you this, that if we can consult with you on this front too. Out of Nashville, Tennessee, some people are not cutting their lawns during the month of April. And why this is funny is that, well, I'll just read it to you here. 200 homes of Davidson County residents are not mowing their lawns during the month of April. This is a no mow month lawns, and they recruited 200 people to participate in this. And I love this quote. I absolutely love this quote from Catherine Price. When we look at our landscapes, having native plants really helps us soak in and infiltrate water. Traditional turf grass has really short roots, so when water hits that grass, it doesn't soak in, and it actually kind of runs off, carrying pollution into our local streams and rivers.
What?
Tell me you're a master gardener without telling me you're a master gardener.
What the? What?
Yes, exactly. That is master gardener speak, if I've ever heard a master gardener speak, and it just drives me absolutely bananas. You'll see little flowers popping up. You'll see bees and little insects going to those plants you're allowing to grow up and flower instead of mowing them down. Okay. I bring this up to say is that, as a family on Easter, what did we do today? We rode around the Dogwood Arch Trails through various parts of Knoxville, and all these beautiful landscapings that are full of dogwood trees and azaleas that are just absolutely mind-blowingly beautiful right now. The trees are all busted out. The azaleas are all busted out. There's flowers everywhere, and you know what? There's grass everywhere, and when you get out and you walk around, and some of these properties you can get out and walk around on or even take pictures on, is that it's teeming with insects already. I mean, they're flying on you in your mouth. They're flying all over your face. They're getting in your ears. They're everywhere. So to pretend to like having grass and manicured grass means it's the end of that is just a complete and total facade. And it takes some master gardener activists like Catherine Price here, bless her heart, to spread that kind of message that 200 other people then buy into it because of whatever level of conviction she has about, and I'm sorry to assume her gender, she may not be whatever level of conviction they have, they end up propagating onto all the other 200 plus community members that decided to sign on to this program as well. So again, it's absolutely fascinating that this is catching on as something that needs to be done. And if you don't do it, you're contributing to a problem. When this is what I ask everybody to do, is get out right now this time of year and just go walk around in the grass, go touch grass, go look at it, go look at landscapes, and look at nice lawns with nice landscaping. Look at nice lawns with nice landscaping, with flowering landscaping, and tell me if it looks like there are no bugs anywhere around. Because if you honestly see that or sense that or experience that, then your eyes are closed and you're refusing to believe it because it's not what you want to hear, as I steal that from Ray earlier. It's just, I don't know, it's frustrating to me that they think this is going to be the game changer. It isn't. All this is an opportunity to put a sign in your yard so you can point to your neighbors and claim moral superiority. I declare I am morally superior to you because I have this sign in my yard and I care about the environment and you don't.
Okay, Matt.
Am I wrong?
That is a funny thing. That's a funny thing that you should mention because, okay, here's what I noticed about the landscapes that I maintain. They are normally full of butterflies, honeybees, and also various birds. Okay? I mean, there is so much wildlife out there that I then have to wonder when I hear about the activists saying, you chemical lawn people are so horrible, you kill everything. Well, explain that to the butterfly visiting the flowers, then please explain that to the butterfly, or please explain that to the honeybees that, yes, they're visiting the tree that's in full bloom right now. And oh, by the way, that flowering tree probably got an injection of imidacloprid sometime during the year. Just saying. Just saying.
I think there's got to be a reckoning, and I when it comes to the folks that get interviewed for these articles, and nothing against Miss Price here, or they, them, whatever, but the point of the matter here is this: is that it's good to have alternatives, but to just simply here's the thing that grinds my fucking gears about this shit is there will never be a earth or a country or a state or a city that does not have turf grass. That will never happen in our lifetime. Maybe not ever. I'll go as far to say it won't happen in this millennia, right? Because it is too important of a functional crop for so many different reasons that it will never happen, right? So to sit there and say that, yeah, like a lawn, it's got short roots, things are going to roll off, this, that, and the other thing, is patently false, right? So how you get to those people, I don't know. I think that rather than sitting there and pounding our fist against the ground and saying, you got to listen to me, this is what turf grass does, this, that, and the other thing, is to, maybe just make these folks realize, listen, there is a place for this, and it exists far wider than you'll ever imagine and far wider than you'll ever accept. And the sooner that you accept that fact, right, the better off we'll all be, instead of just leaning into all this, alternative, right, that exists out there. And quite honestly, we don't know the full impact of what those alternative landscapes will do in certain environments. We've studied them in various locales and certain types of plants and selections and things like that. But from a standpoint of the benefits that turf grass provides versus what those alternatives offer, right, there is a trade-off. There absolutely is a trade-off. And I'm not saying that one's better or worse than the other. I'm saying that we don't know. We simply don't know what we're giving up. So to sit there and just say, well, hey, you give this up and there's more biodiversity and there's less pesticides and this and that, I don't discount that, but you're giving up some other of the benefits, right, with respect to temperature calming and erosion control and things like that, right, that are really, really important with other parts of an ecosystem, right? If we start draining down silt and mulch and all kinds of stuff down into storm sewers and end up in waterways and things like that, what kind of problems is that creating, right? So just random little things, random thoughts. There's no really coherent line there other than that those folks need to accept that turf grass will always be a part of the fabric of society, and not just because of pop culture and not just because of what's cool and hip and people want to have green, dark green lush grass and all this and big dick energy. It's the fact that it is the most functional crop of any kind that we have in the world today. I rest my case.
Sorry, muted myself. There it is. Let's go ahead and check out this week's returns.
La 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 la. I'm back.
We are back, and first things first, I want to give a shout out to this lady. Nutrient Ag Solutions, only woman plant manager, excels in a male-dominated industry. Let me tell you this: being a plant manager is a grueling task, especially when you're talking about in the fertilizer space, because there are so many various processes that you have to manage that are highly regulated. That I think she 100% deserves a shout out and being able to get it done, because this is another aspect of the industry that is very, very difficult to navigate in. Obviously, Nutrien is one of the big boys, so not only to have a role here at one of the most, I use this term loosely, cutthroat But I mean that in a cutthroat sector of the industry, and be able to excel in it. That is not an easy thing to do, and that requires someone that is extremely passionate in what they do, and someone who is extremely organized and in a completely different way. And then also they have to have skin that is absolutely thick as hell. If you can only imagine what it's working like in that kind of place in the ag industry that focuses purely on the types of shit that Nutrient Ag does at this particular facility, which is a Loveland facility, right? So you've got all kinds of different pesticides that are rolling through there, and as well as herbicides. And I mean, you've got people that are breathing down your neck for product yesterday, and it is what it is, especially in the waning aspect of the supply chain issues we were facing. I don't know. I think she deserves a hell of a lot of respect for being able to pull that off, because that is not an easy thing to do. I sure shit would not want that job, not once, not ever.
Round of applause. And yeah. Well, and I think it's something too that we've talked a little bit about this year on the show, and the movement about women in turf, right, in general. And obviously, manufacturing sector is a far more underrepresented one than most others. But yeah, I think it's right now, I can't speak for the industry as a whole, but I think with sports in the sports field sector, it's like 3%, 4%, something like that. So very much a male dominated thing. And I think what we'll find is that as people do see, more folks like them that look like them, that, identify with their background, their upbringing, their views on, work and career and things like that, that it becomes easier and easier and all that kind of thing. I think the most important thing, though, is that as we get these different groups involved, is that, we don't silo everybody and just say, well, hey, because you're a woman or because you're a minority or whatever, and it's not to disparage that, right, or not recognize that part of who somebody is. It's to say that, we've not done a great job, endearing ourselves to those people. At the same time, though, that we're all turf people, right? We can welcome those folks in with open arms, and we all just need to hold on to the fact that we're turf people first, and that everything else, is just a put of who we are, and that's what that is. So it's good to see this, though. Good to see Nutrient Ag. I bet you that but you shouldn't take a whole lot of shit. I'll tell you that. And I wouldn't expect anybody to in that regard, right, Matt?
You're damn right. Our second one here is investigating pest management on U.S. golf courses. In 2021, superintendents at 71% of U.S. golf facilities reported having either an integrated pest management plan or a pesticide application plan, up from 66% in 2015, but equivalent to 2007. IPM is a foundational component of golf course maintenance, best management practices, and combines five key principles: identifying key pests, their host beneficial organisms prior to acting, establishing robust monitoring programs for known pests, establishing tolerance thresholds for various pests, evaluating and implementing control measures, and monitoring, evaluating, and documenting the results leading to continued improvement and reduced resource utilization. Control measures include non-chemical cultural management practices aimed at reducing stress to the turf and conventional chemical pesticide use. So anyway, what they go in and they break it down based on various areas. And what we can see is kind of the change over a period of time and the percentage of U.S. golf facilities that were surveyed here. And you kind of see some ups and downs that are statistically different. You're seeing fewer people by a little bit that are no longer monitoring weather patterns. Scouting is still kind of remaining the same. Pesticide resistance management strategies are still being employed at the same. I would hope that would be going up from 2015 to 2021, but the fact that it isn't, that's okay. It's something that we can identify to work better on. Anyway, there's a whole map here that points it out and provides a little bit of discussion on this and why we may or may not see this as well too. When you see this, gentlemen, what goes through your head? What do you think is ultimately the good that we're seeing out of here? And then, is there anything that sticks out to you that you're just like, oh shit, that's not a good sign?
Actually,
You know,
none
I
of
don't.
this. None of this.
Okay.
To me,
Go
none
ahead.
of this is a bad sign because you see, remember how I say the whole concept of IPM has been bastardized and misused,
Sure.
and that the results of this survey are, to me, it's almost like a positive sign that these golf people are discarding all of the voodoo, all of the horse shit, and getting back to actual science and getting back to provable and actionable measures that actually work. Okay? And this is kind of important too, because when money is flush, yes, you actually are allowed to, I guess, be a little more experimental, be a little more avant-garde. But when money is tight, the directive becomes stick to what works. No horse shit, no voodoo. Okay?
Sure. Sure.
I mean, that I'm looking at that from the point of like actual like golf and landscape operations. There's all of this pseudoscientific voodoo stuff is fine and good when you've got money to waste and time to waste. But that is not the current situation right now either.
Mm-hmm.
It may have been in the past, but there's a new reality out there. Ain't nobody got time for that.
What are you seeing, DeMay?
I see a lot that's not changed, quite honestly. I mean, I've been out of the golf business now for 10 years, and I still keep pretty close tabs on it. I'm not in it every single day, so I can't speak to everything. But, if I look down through here at, some of the pest management practices by frequency facility, there's not a lot that has, appreciably improved or changed or anything like that, that is important. And so, one of the things that calls out here in the conclusion that, you need to have a written plan and all this and all that. I think one of the things that's going to be important, and it sort of cuts both ways, is one, there still is, an old guard, and it was people that trained me, right? People that mentored me on how to, go about my business. And it was some, it were people that were, at most facilities, very protective, right, of their turf conditions, meaning that, hey, we're gonna go ahead and throw a third mode of action in the tank because it's hot, or what, our interval is 14 days, but what, I don't know about this one. We're gonna go out at 10 days to go ahead and spray. And listen, like, I'm completely guilty of that too. I would do stuff like that all the time. In my younger days is when I was a superintendent, for sure. And so I think, there's some of that. And then the other part too is without these written plans, right, of how things are being done and why they're being done. Now you've got a whole new crop of people that are coming in, and yeah, they are looking at, different things like predictive models, remote sensing, imaging technology and digital imaging processing that can help, you make better and more informed decisions. And you don't need to rely just on your gut, right? That it kind of takes a little bit of the science out of, art out of the science, and vice versa, right? So I worry about where the people that are coming up, where do they get caught in the middle, and how do we move towards something that's a little bit more, I don't want to say it formulaic, because, nothing's ever concrete, but I do think that there's a huge vacuum right now where technology is going to catch up in a hurry. And when I say a hurry, I'm saying like 5 to 10 years, where there will be
Time's up. It's over.
That too, and the ability for us to draw on computers and things like that, AI, whatever the case might be, to pick up and notice trends that we can't see or perceive with our naked eye, or our brain power, or a spreadsheet, or something like that. And I think that will be the next frontier. So I'm sad to see that not a lot's changed. I'm not surprised to see that not a lot's changed, but I'm hopeful that as things progress here between technology and some new young folks that are coming into it that are younger than us even, that they'll try and do better than we did.
Sure. With that, let's roll over and check out this week's mailbag.
You've got mail.
Oh,
we do have mail, and this first one is from Jack K. He says, I'd like to thank you for sharing your knowledge and for all that I learned by you by watching videos in the Dirty Deeds Discord. Called on the show a year ago to talk to Ray and Reiner from Central New Jersey, have an old lawn, and was asking how nice an old lawn could look, and I've been trying to improve my 50,000 square foot lawn for the last few years. Last year's soil test attached showed a pH of 5.5, and I spread 4,500 pounds of lime last year via 2 apps, spring and fall. I'm very curious to see how the lawn reacts this year and hope we see a bit more rain for my non-irrigated lawn. This year's soil test attached showed the pH raised to 6.0, so I was planting another app of lime this spring. Also attaches my soil texture analysis. I've also chatted with Ray and Ryan via Discord about addressing the bent grass in my lawn. I'm planning to follow the instructions late summer to apply tenacity plus urea from DEF. And depending on how the lawn looks, I'm thinking about overseeding with a good quality tall fescue blend. I'm basically writing to ask if you have any other recommendations for me based on what you see in the soil test. I'm just a DIY lawn dad, but capable of following instructions. I have a lawn tractor, towable sprayer, spreader, aerator, and dethatcher, and mow often if required. My blades are always sharp, and I mow high. I'm mostly weed-free since having good success with Speed Zone. I'm not trying to compete with Ryan Nor, but I would like my neighbors to wonder why my lawn looks better than theirs, even though they pay for a lawn service. I'm especially grateful for all the money you've saved me by learning to focus on NPK and ignoring the buy my shit online. I was happy to put those savings towards your St. Jude campaign. No brainer. WeCareLawnCare.info. And even better with the company match. Good stuff, gentlemen. Thanks again. Would love to have any recommendations you have for me. Here we go.
Matt, have you ever mowed high before?
Yeah, funny you say that.
Notice how Ryan doesn't ask me that. Notice how Ryan never asks me that.
Well, I know what it would take to get Matt out there to actually mow, and I'm sure if you coaxed him and said, "Hey, listen, there's a little something out there for you, if you go in the shed."
Yeah.
These days, these days it would have to be the excitement and adrenaline rush of like a structure fire. But when I was 18, 19 years old, I was not to say a little cabbage wouldn't get me hyped up. Taking a look at this, is there anything that sticks out to me? No. I mean, sulfur is a little low, but again, if you're applying a micronutrient source that's going to be sulfated, like you're spraying iron sulfate or something, you're good there. You're already off the charts on iron. If you find a K source with potassium sulfate, that'll get you all the sulfur you need. I know you're at a pH of 6.0 and you're worried about liming again. I wouldn't. Just between me and you, especially since it's non-irrigated. Ray does. Ray would.
I would lime. Because to me, trying to grow anything other than bent grass, fine fescue, or centipede grass at a low pH is a less than fun experience. I mean, that's just how it is. And so your best friend in this case is, rather than all of the buy my shit supplements, is lime. Low doses of lime twice a year. 25 pounds per 1,000 square foot, spring and fall. I mean, that would be the item that makes the most difference on this lawn, because you know what I'm looking at that is kind of significant to me, nutrient-wise? Calcium. Okay, I'm looking at the guy's calcium, and for me, I stop worrying about calcium once I see that calcium go above 1,500. That's when I stop worrying and stop thinking about it. And for him, he'd even be a candidate for an application, at least one application of dolomitic lime instead of calcium lime. Get that magnesium number a little bit up. Just a little. Not too much, but just a little.
There you go. I think you're going to get differing opinions there. I wouldn't worry about lime. I would just if you apply any K and you did it from potassium sulfate. I mean that would be my only thing.
Look at that
Brian, what about you?
ENR. Oh, that organic matter sky high. He's going to be juiced in the summertime. I'd go. I'd get you out there with some ammonium sulfate a little bit early and a little bit late in the year. You know, when your urease is not as active there and getting going. So that'll get your sulfur up just a little bit, like what Matt was saying. Some potassium sulfate wouldn't hurt if you really wanted to FAFO. But AMS for the first app and the last app, and just urea for me. I'm not worried about that pH. I'm not really worried about a whole lot on this thing over here right now. So easy peasy lemon squeezy. Spend that money on good seeds, sir. Save it from all the buy my shit. Don't give in to the terrorists, right?
Our second one here is from Brian C. He says, good evening. I've got an 1.5 acres of zoysia in South Texas. It's 15 years old, and it's my pride and joy. These last 18 months, it's got some problems. Appears to be fungus, which I've treated, brown patch, and just areas that look compacted are no longer growing. I've never dethatched or aerated. What should I do in addition to the fertilizer and supplements you support? Look, this is going to be really difficult to diagnose just on this. Brian, I'm going to highly recommend you send us some pictures or something that give us a starting point of where to start looking at this. When you say that it's no longer growing, to me, that sounds like nematodes. And that's the first place my head goes, is because the only thing that I have ever seen that has completely couched zoysia grass into just no longer growing is a nematode issue. And especially with it being 15 years old, it would not be shocking to me. And where you are, South Texas, I don't think that matters to me, but that's one of those things that can creep in, and it's literally like it's growth regulated to the gills at all times. It has a specific lack of color response, no matter what you end up putting on it, and then it just ceases to grow. It's like it just sits there, it's alive, and it's like it's growing on concrete for whatever reason, and it just isn't growing at all, and it's weird.
Matt, okay,
somebody's saying
here's my
and pics, soil test, and take all root rot is there as well. Yeah, I've never seen take all root rot just keep live grass from not growing though. Typically it'll be cooked at that point.
Okay, my usual rapid diagnostic for nematodes on zoysia is how the zoysia reacts to hot weather and watering. Because here's what I typically see. I typically see a zoysia lawn that is extremely drought stressed, but then the second I apply a little bit of water, it seems as if the grass comes back to life, right before my eyes as the irrigation is on. And then when I dig a little deeper, I'm looking at the roots of the grass. What I notice is that all I see are the stolons and the rhizomes, and what's visibly absent from those stolons and rhizomes are all of these fine feeder roots. And the reason why those feeder roots are gone is because especially sting nematode and lance nematode have taken those roots away from the grass. And so when somebody tells me zoysia lawn that was okay until it's not okay, oftentimes the issue is nematodes. And Texas is actually one of those states where they have ideal conditions for nematodes, actually, because they're warm. They don't freeze in the winter. Okay, they're prime candidates because they're not under several inches of ice for 6 months out of the year. Because if you do have ice 6 months out of the year, then the type of nematode that you can have is different, because then that tends to be the cyst nematode or the root knot nematode but those nematodes typically don't cause as much damage to turfgrass versus a sting, lance, or ring nematode. And those nematodes are more common in warmer areas. So, oh my gosh. I mean, my friend, if that is your problem, there's one more thing I'm going to tell you. Do not aerate. And the reason why I'm going to tell you do not aerate is because nematodes tend to occur very sporadically in the lawn. But you start sticking instruments in the soil and then lifting that instrument out of the soil and then sticking it somewhere that's not infected. Guess what you're doing? You're basically inoculating the rest of your lawn with nematodes. So please don't aerate. And the last bit of advice that I give you is also look at a soil test, because the other issue that I noticed with zoysia is that zoysia, depending on its variety, tends to struggle when your soil pH is over 7. It also struggles if your pH is below 6. So you cannot know that just by looking at the soil, more or less. You've got to send it into a reputable laboratory and get that stuff checked out. Yeah.
There you go.
I don't grow
So-
zoysia, and I've been to Texas about exactly 12 days in my life. So I'm going to, I just sat here and shut the fuck up.
If you, like I said, if you feel like sending the rest of that in, by all means, it is not going to hurt our feelings. We'd love to check it out. So anyway, that's all. We're going to head on over and hang out with our patrons and let them pick the title of this week's episode. See ya.
Whoa.